Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth, another podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie. My name is Dr. Leslie Phillips, and I am your host. And if you're tuning in for the first time, then let me introduce you to Unlocking Your Truth. We are a talk show, and we focus on metaphysics and spirituality, and every week we have a different topic that we focus on, or we interview a guest. And this week we actually have a guest that we'll be introducing to you. You're listening to us live on 101.7 FM, broadcasting across the Fraser Valley. And you can also catch us on our podcast at drlesliephillips.com. You're welcome to email your questions to info@drlesliephillips.com. So without further ado, like I said, we have got a fabulous guest to introduce you to today, and his name is Kyle Davies, and he is a psychologist and an author. So he started out as a chartered psychologist. He's a therapist, a coach, a speaker, and an author, and he's the creator of Energy Flow Coaching. And this is a mind-body approach to help people achieve optimum well-being and experience greater personal freedom. And he spent the last 15 years specializing in helping people who suffer from chronic health challenges like chronic fatigue syndrome, also fibromyalgia, irritable bowel syndrome, depression, anxiety, and helping them recover their health and lead happy and fulfilled lives. And the book that he's written is called The Intelligent Body, Reversing Chronic Fatigue and Pain from the Inside Out. And I believe he helps both individuals, and he also works with corporations as well. So welcome to the show, Kyle.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and welcome from Wales.
Oh, how lovely. What part of Wales are you in?
I'm in Cardiff, and today it's sunny. So we've had about a month of rain, even though it should be summer here, but it rains a lot in Wales. You might be able to remember that, Leslie, from your...
Yes. Well, I was in Wales. Well, I was in Wales about... probably only a year ago, because I'm actually from the Wirral, so we're not that far away from North Wales anyway.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Well, yes, it's lovely to hear a familiar accent.
It is.
Thank you for having me on the show today.
Oh, you're so welcome. And I'm really interested in finding out more about your approach and more about your book as well. And so maybe I can just start off by asking you, what do you mean when you talk about the intelligent body?
Oh, you're getting straight in there with the tough questions, aren't you? What do I mean by the intelligent body? Essentially, I think that as a culture, we are very, very thinking orientated. And I've come through working personal development and therapy and coaching, and there was lots of, there was a whole kind of thing, there was a whole movement of, if you want to change your life, you want to change how you feel, you change the way you think. So I think as a Western culture, we channel everything, be it spiritual enlightenment or be it just feeling better, we channel everything through our mental, that mental framework. And my sense of it is that we need to transcend that part of ourselves. I think that an awful lot of the problems that we experience these days arise from the fact that we've become stuck in our thinking brain. We try to solve everything with our thinking brain, and we become detached from our spiritual selves, our physical body, our emotional selves. So that's part of it. I think the other kind of crux of it is that because of the nature of sort of the work I do, I think a lot of the time the way we view symptoms and health challenges are it's something happening to me. This materialistic kind of worldview that has dominated for hundreds of years has us look at the body as a machine and the universe as this random purposeless thing. And I think what happens is then often, we think the body is a machine, so if something is wrong, we think something is happening to us, and therefore we need to go and see a doctor, and it's broken down into little bits. So if there's a problem with your big toe, then the doctor focuses on your big toe and tries to give you something to alleviate those symptoms. And of course, medicine does some fantastic things, but my sense of it is that rather than us immediately jumping to a conclusion that our symptoms are evil invaders or a result of bad genes, we want to look at our bodies being an intelligent thing and look at the symptoms that it sends as a message or a messenger trying to get our attention. Now, I sort of think that deep down intuitively people kind of already know this. I think if a person has a bad head, or if something's not quite right, they have a bad stomach or they're a bit groggy, I think people a lot of the time kind of know, they intuitively know. But I also think that we suppress that intuitive part of us, and people, certainly if that bad head extends for a few days, there is that, there must be something wrong with me, and we get into that mechanistic perspective. And because we're very passive in relation to healthcare, we tend to think, all right, well, my doctor will do something, my doctor will work on my symptoms. So the essence of that idea of what is an intelligent body is that your body is it's the vehicle that's housing this spiritual self, isn't it? That's the kind of idea. We're spiritual beings having this experience on this crazy planet, and and it's brutal out there. It's not, it really is. But in order for us to have this experience, it's a bit like if I play on the Wii with my kids, I have to have a little me to get on the screen and to play. So I've got this vehicle, this body, and it's functional. So if there's something, if I'm deviating from, the path I need to be taking, if I'm deviating from my true self, then my body will tell me. So it is an intelligent thing. And this is a waffly answer, isn't it? But the idea of the intelligent body is that what we want to be doing is attuning to it, because rather than thinking that it just kind of goes wrong, if it has symptoms, it's going wrong and it's crap and I don't like it, we want to be embracing it from a perspective of, actually, it's an intelligent thing. So if I'm walking down the street and a stone pops in my shoe, my intelligent body sends me a symptom of pain to tell me that, well, there's a stone and it's damaging, so I need to do something about that. Of course, if I don't feel that pain, my intelligent body doesn't send that signal, then that I could have gangrene after a period of time if I don't pay attention. So that's my convoluted answer to your question of what do I mean by the intelligent body.
Well, thank you, Kyle. It was a really thorough answer, and I must say, you share a common philosophy with me. I completely agree with everything that you said there, really, that the medical profession is fantastic, but it's a very mechanistic approach. It's almost like treating the body like a vehicle, isn't it?
It is.
This part doesn't work, so let's remove it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's fine if there's a broken bone, then medicine knows what to do, and it's brilliant. And if you have to have an operation on something and you really need that, I mean, I had knee surgery last year, and it was brilliant. And medicine is brilliant for those sorts of things. Because what we're experiencing certainly in Western cultures is more people experiencing chronic health problems, and medicine is not able to deal with them.
Right, and that's actually what I was going to ask you about next. And by the way, I agree with you about the intellect. We are so focused on that, and of course my thing is I teach people how to access their intuition. So so next question then is, because there really does seem to be an epidemic of chronic health problems, and and of course the medical profession tends to medicate these people, and so what's another approach that we can take to that instead of drugging everybody that has a chronic health problem? What would you suggest?
Well, the very short answer is come and work with me. But the slightly, it would be, oh, well, why? Why on earth would we come and work with you? So I think, my perspective is I think we need to understand why those symptoms are there. From I suppose, a more academic perspective, I think that when our body is in a perpetual state of stress, then it begins to send symptoms of some sort or another: anxiety, depression, fatigue, pain, migraines, stomach and bowel complaints. So I work with a whole range of those things. People often say, because people are stuck in that paradigm, or many people are stuck in that paradigm of there being a separation between mind and body. But I think that the notion of stress is where we really get to see that the mind and body are one. And there are a couple of important things I think we need to look at. So the first thing is that what we know is that the body stress response is exactly the same regardless of whether you have a physical injury, an illness, or an emotional trauma. So you could have a car accident, you could have a bad case of flu, or you could lose a job. And the stress response in the body is exactly the same. So that, for me, is one very interesting point. You could be drinking too much, you could have a bad diet, you could not be sleeping well, you could have lots of emotion that you're burying in your, what I would call your stress bucket. When all of those things go in that stress bucket and it gets full, then the body begins to send symptoms. And being intelligent, it's sending us symptoms to let us know that the stress bucket is full.
So is that what the common connection between all the different conditions that you work on? Because you work on anxiety, depression, autoimmune conditions, fibromyalgia. Is stress the link to everything?
Stress, in my view, is the connection. And as I say, it's this expanded idea of stress. So I think many people have a very narrow idea of stress, and they think that stress is an uncomfortable feeling they have if their boss gives them too much work, or if their wife overloads them with jobs, or whatever it is. My sense is that's an emotional feeling of overload, and it's not necessarily stress. Yes, it could be that the body goes into a stress response if they act in a certain way. But I think the second kind of crucial piece about stress, the first bit being that a physical thing, an injury, an accident, an illness, an emotional thing, all triggers the same stress response. That's the first important thing. The second important thing is our body can be in a state of stress without us being aware of it. I think that's very, very important, because I think a lot of the time, as I say, people think that stress is that uncomfortable feeling, when in actual fact, and I think this is one of the dangers with our modern lives, with us stuck in our thinking brain, is that we tune out to our body, our feelings, those, and everything that goes on inside. And what happens then is that the body gets into a state of stress. So just a little quick example of that. I remember some years ago reading a book called Healing Without Prozac and Freud by an American doctor called David Servan-Schreiber. And he was talking about an experiment he was doing to try to map areas of the brain with the stress response. So what he was doing was showing people disturbing, as he said, films. And he was looking at heart rate, blood pressure, and the activity of the brain. And he said he had one lady in it. She was watching these films, and she was sat in the lab, and he was looking at what was going on. And he said her heart rate was going mad, her blood pressure was sky high, and the activity of her brain was kind of off the charts. He's thinking, oh my God, this lady's in a deep state of stress. I better go and check she's okay. So he goes into the lab and says, are you okay? Do you want me to turn this film off? And she looks at him with this element of surprise and says, oh no, I'm perfectly fine. I'm quite happy watching this. So for him, that was, well, she's tuned out. For me, it's a little bit more serious, is that she is obviously tuned out. We know, as you were saying earlier, we can get into that intellectual part of us. We can tune out what's going on in our body. But if we do that over a period of time, the stress bucket gets full, and the body will send some form of symptom. And that's the idea of it being intelligent, is it's trying to tell us, you need to listen to me. You can't ignore me. So being stuck in the thinking brain is not useful.
Well, thank you so much. And It's fabulous having a chat with you, and you've been listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie on 101.7 FM on CIVL. You can live stream us on civl.ca, and you can also catch the podcast on drlesliephillips.com. One of the things I'm interested in, Kyle, is that your bio says that you meld the scientific with the metaphysical. And so can you tell us what you mean by that?
Okay, so in terms of the scientific approach, I suppose that's looking at stress in the body. The spiritual elements of it is that, as I was saying at the start of the show, I think we're spiritual beings having a human experience. I think that we're wired in a particular way, and therefore we attract certain things into our lives. I think what I see is people that have the same experiences over and over again. My work is about getting people back in touch with their feeling selves, and my sense is that it's not that outside life causes how we feel. It's that our conception of our reality arises from inside of us, and our job is to attune to that in order that we can kind of guide ourselves through life. But if we're feeling something, it's mine. This is my journey. So my feelings are for me to learn from and me to act upon. They're not about John Smith or Joe Bloggs. It's about me. So I guess that's part of it. What I see are patterns around which people experience symptoms and patterns around which people experience emotions and feelings. And I think that has something to do with the life lessons they have. So it could be that people have contracts. It could be that they're coming and they're kind of working through things. So that's a part of it. Another part is, for me, in terms of the spiritual stuff, is that we're without doubt going through a massive consciousness shift at the moment. And, you know, since, probably 1987 was where things kicked off. But since, 2006, 2007, for me, things have been heating up, getting more intense. And certainly since 2012, the last few years have been very intense. And I think people are feeling this. I'm experiencing, more people having these health challenges, more people feeling kind of lost, confused, stuck. They don't know who they are. So I view it all as a spiritual thing. I think, as I say, for me, our feeling experience predominantly is arising from inside of us. It's a reflection of my level of vibration. But also, I can't extricate myself from my environment. I can't extricate myself from the energy of the planet and all that is. So I think we do feel, we do pick up on everything that's happening. So the intensity that I think has been taking place, in the US with Trump and in Britain with kind of Brexit and the election, all of these things, I think people are feeling a huge amount of stuff. Now, why is this important? Well, it's important, and in terms of looking at how it relates to health issues, is that for the most part, people often think that their emotional feelings are directly caused by outside life. Yes, we pick up on certain feelings or certain energies in life, but a lot of what we're feeling is arising from inside of us. It's about me. So it's for me to deal with. It's not really that I need to be blaming something or somebody outside of me. So how I feel is often a reflection of my state of consciousness, where I'm vibrating, if that makes sense, rather than, it being because Bob Smith is doing this or Jim Jones is doing that. Does that make sense, or is that?
Yeah, no, it does make sense. So exactly. And, my perspective is that we tend to sort of say, compartmentalize things to understand it. Or this is spiritual, this is not spiritual. But my perspective is all life is a spiritual it's who you are. So
yeah.
now you do a lot of work with businesses, I understand, and I mean, I agree with you that the energy frequency has been ramping up over this time period that you were talking about, and so everything is being intensified for people as the switch gets turned up. Then a stronger light is shined on all of us, on our society, on ourselves, and stuff that used to be hidden is no longer hidden, and it's forcing us to pay attention to it.
Absolutely.
So how does that play out in the work environment? I used to work in the corporate world, but I left it in 2005 actually to focus on what I do now. But I just can't, even then I just remember how like everyone sort of has to suppress themselves in a way to be in that professional environment, talking about people stuffing down their emotions and all of that. So how have you seen that play out in the corporate environment over the last 10 years or so?
I think, the in terms of the way I work, I in certainly working in Britain, I don't talk about it in a spiritual way, but in terms of people's performance, because I see the connection being that when we perform at our best when we are aligned with what I would call our true self, which could be our soul. So, I see the purpose of our lives to be to having the experience of ourselves, which means aligning with our soul, aligning with our true self. So I kind of frame it from a performance perspective, really, that what we need to do is align with who we are. And we don't do that by excessive thought. So it's the same kind of idea that we need to take responsibility for our emotional selves. But I also have this, for me, our emotion is just like, it's a feedback mechanism, just like hunger and tiredness is. So I know a lot of there are lots of people that think emotion is something that has to be talked about, or it's something in the past that has to be unblocked. My perspective is a little bit different. I view our emotion, as far as I'm concerned, is guiding us back to our true self. So if I'm in a work context and I'm interacting with my boss and my body sends me anger, my perspective is that anger is about me. It's inviting me in this moment to act in alignment with my true self. So I don't have to solve that anger. The anger is not a problem. I need to allow myself to feel it, to experience it, and know it's not that it's about my boss, it's about me. Because it could be I'm experiencing a huge amount of anger because he's taken a pencil off my desk. So it's not that he's caused my anger by taking that pencil off my desk. It's I need to understand that it's a reflection of me. But what I do about that is needs to be in alignment with my true self. And therefore we're then getting into more of a flow. It's not something I need to sit and analyze. I don't need to, and analyzing and thinking will only make me feel worse. So as I say, it's not. I don't go from a perspective that we need to sit around and talk about our feelings. I go from that perspective that my emotions are guiding me back to my true self, and in order for me to perform at my best, really, I want to be out of my head, because we kind of have, we sort of know that, don't we? If those times in life when we've been at our best, whether at our happiest, if we're performing particularly well, it tends to be when our head is clear. We tend to be aligned with our true self, and then we get into what I would call our own energy flow. So we do that by not judging ourselves, by not trying to find meaning in what we feel. We just allow what we feel, and we recognize that, well, my emotion is guiding me back to me. I'm going to flow with it. I'm going to take whatever action feels right. So I suppose it's being spiritual, but I'm putting a cape over it so that people don't often see. But it's the essence of it is, I'm sure, like the work that you do, is getting people back to who they really are.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now, One of the other questions I wanted to ask you is how your work feeds into helping people with their relationships. And that's whether it's a relationship at work or whether it's a personal, private relationship. How can people have more fulfilling relationships?
I think there's two things. I think 2 points from a spiritual perspective. My sense of it is that we without doubt experience the most amount of emotion in connection, shall we say, with those who are closest to us, so the members of our family. So you'll have those spiritual teachers that will tell you that you incarnate with the same people over and over again to learn certain lessons, and that may well be the case. It's certainly the case that, you know, our spouses, our siblings, our parents, our children are the catalysts for the most amount of emotion that we experience. So that's, I think, understanding that. And if you're looking at it from a spiritual perspective, then you can allow yourself to believe that, well, this is a training ground. Again, it's my journey, so it's about me. So that's the first thing, is my emotion is about me. So I'm taking away judgment. You know, if I experience anger and the context involves my wife, I'm not going to blame my wife. I'm going to look at what is it I need to do here. My intelligent body is inviting me to act in alignment with my true self. So what do I need to do? So that's the first thing. The second thing, I think, is that I think my sense of it is our sense, and without wanting to get too kind of woo-woo, our sense of reality is constantly shifting from moment to moment, and it varies depending on our vibrational frequency. So I see it as existing and fluctuating on a spectrum. So in a high vibrational consciousness state, that's when we're kind of really aligned and our head is clear and we're flowing. The choices we make are good. We feel good. We experience emotions, but you know, we experience happiness, sadness, everything. But they're not great. They're not massive shifts. Conversely, when we're in a low vibrational consciousness, I think we experience a lot of anger and fear. Our head is very, very cluttered. Our perception of the world is negative and hostile. Our perception of ourselves is unpleasant. The choices we make are not good. So those are the two extremes of my sense of a vibrational spectrum. And we fluctuate up and down that on the course of every day. What I try to do is nudge people more towards the top end of the spectrum with that acceptance that, well, I'm going to be moving up and down. But when we can, you know, if I'm feeling off kilter, now it may be there's a lot of things in my stress bucket, but it may be that I wake up one day, and it could be because of the vibration of the planet. You know, there's a lot of crap going on, and I'm picking up on that as an empath. But if my vibration has dropped and I've dropped down that spectrum and I don't feel good, and I know that I'm on a spectrum, I therefore know that, right, well, my emotional experience will be volatile. My perception of myself will not be good. I probably won't feel very good about myself, and I'm likely to view life in a hostile way today, or in this hour, or in this, half day. If I know that, then I'm not immediately looking at, if I then do feel a huge amount of anger because Jim Smith has left the milk out the fridge at work, then I know that it's not actually about Jim Smith. It's about me. So in terms of relationships, it makes it a lot easier for me to know that, right, well, a lot of the time my emotional experience is arising from inside of me. All right, partly because of what might be in my stress bucket. It might be because of what's going on with the planet at the moment. Or a lot of it is certainly going to be related to where I lie on that vibrational spectrum. So in close relationships, if we can take responsibility for ourselves and stop blaming others for how we feel, get out of that victim mode, then it becomes much easier to kind of work with people that we're with. I think too frequently, and it's very easy to be a victim. God knows I've been there. I know what it's like to be a victim, to blame others, to blame people for how I feel. You made me feel like this. And when we turn that on, and because we don't, that's when we experience all sorts of issues and problems and things don't work out. But when we take responsibility, and that's not about blame, And it's not about trying to take control either, because I don't believe that we can. I don't believe we're controlling how we feel, but I think we can allow ourselves to flow with how we feel.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my key for relationships. Is to say, is recognizing that I'm the creator of my experience largely. I have a person who is a catalyst, almost like a training ground for me. So,
Great.
It's about me. It's all about me.
Well, it is. Everything is about you, or me, Corey, within ourselves, isn't it? So,
it is.
Yeah. So I'm going to see actually now, because we like to always ask our guests a few listener questions. And so I'm sure Corey has picked out a few that are relevant to ask you about. And so we'll ask one question before the next break, and then we'll spend the rest of the time with our listeners' questions. So Corey,
Awesome.
what's the first question you have for Kyle?
First of all, can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. I found my other headset now. This is a question from Nada. And Nada would like to know, or she says, my question has to do with clearing the past. Any attachments or deeply held patterns, how to clear and remove once and for all?
That's a big question, isn't it? Now, there are lots of different approaches for this, and I have a particular approach where I don't really work with the past as such. So my perspective is that I think our memories and our thoughts to a certain extent are vibrational in nature, and I think we tune into them. I think that if I'm vibrating at the same frequency as I was many years ago, then I'll get memories about that. If I want to have a different experience today, I need to shift how I experience today and what I do today. All right, now let me make that more practical and give you an example. So when I started working with people with chronic fatigue and ME and fibromyalgia, I seem to attract a number of clients to me that in a period of time that experienced post-traumatic stress-like symptoms. So they'd have memories that would kind of jump into their mind, be very disturbing, and have a huge impact on them. And they, at the time, they said, "Okay, so I've got these kind of PTSD-like symptoms. Can we work on those?" Now, I'd done hypnosis, I'd done tapping therapy, I'd done counseling, I did loads of therapy. So I said, well, what we'll do, we'll work on your physical chronic fatigue symptoms, and then at the end of the process, we'll come back and we'll have a look at those memories that seem to be affecting you. And what I found was, as we work with their physical symptoms, as their vibrations shift, as they kind of changed who they are by attuning to their true self and shifting the way they interacted with life now, what they all said to me, this cluster of people, was they said, God, it's really weird. I'm not experiencing those symptoms of ME and chronic fatigue anymore. And also, those memories are not haunting me. So they said, we can consciously recreate those memories, but they don't, they're not haunting like they once were. And they see the memories are kind of grainy and off in the distance. So my sense of it was that, well, maybe humans are like tuning forks. And as we vibrate, we resonate with those memories that are of the same frequency. So to a certain extent, I think that my perspective is that I don't get into the past and work with people's past as such. I go from that idea that what we need to do is change our frequency now, because that changes the connection that we have with the past. I think, you can't, I'm not sure that you can change the past as such, but I think vibrationally you can change the extent to which you tune into it, almost as if you're tuning to a different radio station. Now, that's not, that's just the way I work with things. I know there's lots of people that specialize in getting into the past and working with it, and that's great. That's just not the way I do it.
Great, thank you. No, it's great. Raise your vibration above it, and then you don't experience it anymore. So I have to go to another break now. And listeners, you've been listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie. We've been interviewing Kyle Davies, and you're listening to CIVL 101.7 FM. We'll be back in a few moments after these messages. Hello and welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie. I'm Dr. Leslie Phillips and I am your host. And today on Unlocking Your Truth, we are talking to psychologist Kyle Davies, who is the author of a book called The Intelligent Body. And right now we're asking him your questions that you wrote in with. And what's the next question we have for Kyle, Corey?
Well, I have another one from Kaylee, and I'm not 100% sure that it's within his purview, but I think it may be. And Kaylee says, I love listening to your show via podcast and would like to ask this question. I have seemed to develop some food intolerances and would like to know if the issues are related to some stuck beliefs or blocks, and if it is possible to clear them. Can you lead me in the right direction? And in this question, I presume it's she's looking for a reading, but I think we can actually answer that one for us.
Okay, so food intolerances, Kyle.
Food intolerances, I would say that they often form part of the cluster of symptoms that I experience with people with CFS and fibro. I think there's a couple of potentials. So I think we are changing as people. I think our DNA is changing as we go through this shift. And I think as that happens, we can experience new symptoms that maybe we haven't had before. I do think with that, though, there's the potential that symptoms can kind of come and possibly go. I think that one of the things it's funny with these things, that there are a number of ways to view them. So it could be that it is a natural part of an evolutionary process that you're going through. It could also be that as I say, when I work with sufferers of chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and those sorts of problems, and they have intolerances like that, it's often the case prior to becoming ill, they would have experienced some mild symptoms, but the symptoms are now amped up. And that is essentially kind of what happens if the body is in a state of stress, which is essentially what I'm saying with a stress bucket is full, there's a rewiring that takes place, the systems of the body go into overdrive, and therefore any mild symptoms or issues become blown up. So it could be that it relates to that. It depends. I would say with something like food intolerances, the easiest way obviously is to kind of change what you eat. It would be interesting to know whether there are any other symptoms that are going with that, or whether there were other symptoms that have now mutated into these symptoms. Because one of the things I experience as well is that people often will experience some type of symptoms and then they'll do something to work on those symptoms. And it's a bit like a maths equation where if you block symptoms in one spot, the body will send them, somewhere else. So, yeah, it's. I'm not giving a straightforward answer, but I think there would be a number of questions to kind of, it begs questions for me that, but it could be a number of things. It could be a sign of part of a spiritual change. It could be a sign of a full stress bucket. It could be either of those things for me, just the way I look at things.
Thank you. So Corey, let's ask Kyle another question.
Well, I don't know if we have all that much time, Leslie, but we'll find one.
I think we have one. We have time for one more. And while you're looking for it, quite often with those food intolerance questions, from a metaphysical perspective, it's often that there's something in somebody's life that they're having difficulty digesting, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Some external circumstance that they're having difficulty digesting.
That also could be a secondary gain. Also be a secondary gain. She's feeling emotional, and so her body's responding to that emotional aspect. So she's looking for some sort of an attention to her emotional deficits. So I have a quick one for you. Again, not 100% sure, but I had a dream last night, and this is from Sally. I had a dream last night. I looked up in the sky and saw two moons in the blue sky. I was showing it to one of my nieces and nephews. From what I looked up online, it may have to do with feeling pulled in two different directions and feminine energy. I made that connection with the recent events in my life, opening up to my mom and things I've recently started doing. My question is, what is the conflict here or the symbolism of the two moons, what it means personally to me?
So she's had a dream about two moons.
She's conflicted.
That's a great question. I'm just going to have to come straight out and say, dreams are not an area I can offer expert guidance on, I'm afraid. Okay. So my general sense is that people probably, I guess dream journaling is probably a good idea to get some idea of what's going on in your life. So you could sit down and look at what's going on in my life, what's bothering me, what am I not happy with, what may be blocked, and then dream journal for a few weeks and see if there are any links. But there are, I'm no dream expert, so Dr. Leslie, you're probably in a much better position to offer an answer to that than I am.
Yeah, and what was the name of this lady, Corey?
Sally.
Yeah, Sally. The main trick with dream interpretation is not what do those symbols mean to somebody else, but what do they mean to you? Because this is your dream and your symbols. I guess there's a number of things it could be about. I'd have to tune into it very quickly. I think we've got a little bit of time, so. And you know what? It kind of looks like it's about two distinct aspects of yourself that you're trying to integrate, right? That would be two polarities within yourself that that seem completely opposite, and almost like one denies the other, except they're both aspects of you. So it looks like she's seeking to integrate two opposing aspects of herself in that dream. So let's leave it there, because unfortunately we're running out of time. And we'll just say, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. You've been listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Leslie. And this evening we've been interviewing Kyle Davies. And Kyle, he's the author of a book called The Intelligent Body. And he is a psychologist, a therapist, a coach and a speaker and an author. And he works with people in the area of chronic stress and a wide variety of different ailments, including anxiety, depression, and fibromyalgia and autoimmune conditions. And Kyle, if the listeners want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
They can find me on my website, which is kyledavies.net, or as North Americans often say, Davies, so KYLEDAVIES.net. I'm on Facebook and Twitter as Kyle Davies as well. The book, The Intelligent Body, is available in all good bookshops, so I'm told by my publisher. On Amazon is probably the best bet. The foreword is by Dr. Gabor Mate, that famous Canadian.
Oh, yeah.
So it's worth buying just for the foreword.
Oh, I'm sure. Did you know? I'd like to read it. It sounds fantastic. All right, listeners. Well, thank you so much for tuning in. That's all we've got time for. And now we have to make way for Johnny K. And Nurse Katie.
And the vinyl spinner lives on.
Yay!
Hopefully.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to another Unlocking Your Truth podcast by Dr. Leslie Phillips. For more information, go to our website at drlesleyphillips.com. That's drlesleyphillips.com. where you can ask questions or send her an email, and there's many free gifts on there for you as well. Come back again.